Guys, hope you're doing well as always and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 5 players that Chelsea need to sign this January. As always guys, if you are new here, please make sure to subscribe, like the video and comment down below which players you think Chelsea need to sign and any other clubs that you want me to look at throughout January and talk about who I think they should sign. Without further ado then, let's get straight into the first position where I think Chelsea needs strengthen, and that is centre-back. There's a real problem with lacking quality in that position for Chelsea. Whether it's a 3-back or whether it's a 4, we struggle, and although we haven't been terribly defensively, there have been so many sloppy errors, and with the likes of Azpilicueta and Thiago Silva on their way out, I think this is a key area where Chelsea need to make improvements. Now, listeners of the Peter Crouch podcast will know of the bull and the gazelle analogy. You've got 2 defenders, one of which being the bull, a Sergio Ramos type figure where they're aggressive, physically imposing and ruthless in their pursuit of winning the ball, compared with the gazelle, who is probably more of like a Varane where it's quite tidy, the secondary player to the ball. But the type of centre-back that I feel Chelsea need is a bull. As I said, Thiago Silva's already on his way out and we are going to be missing a leader. So the first option I've got for this position is Milan Skriniar from Inter Milan. The 27-year-old is a leader. His contract's expiring at the end of the season with a 60 million valuation, but with the contract situation I expect there to be some wiggle room with negotiations. He's in the top 4% of defenders for passes completed with a 92% success rate over the last year, and despite their struggles this season, Inter only conceded 32 goals in 38 games last season, with Skriniar the heartbeat of that defence. And with the struggles that Inter Milan are facing, I wouldn't be surprised if he's seeking a new challenge. There is risk with this option, however, that he could become another sort of Koulibaly type figure, and I don't want to slate Koulibaly too much because I do believe that he should be given the end of the season to try and prove his worth, but there's no doubt so far he's been a failure of a signing. Now, there has been movement on this front towards the centre-back positioning with Chelsea. We're rumoured to have an agreement with Benoit Badashilo for 38 million euros, who's another competent distributor of the ball, averaging about 3.8 progressive passes per 90 minutes, and he's imposing in the air as well, 2.63 aerial duels won per game, so this player is clearly going to be a threat from set pieces defensively and on the attack. He's actually scored 2 goals this season for Monaco, both of which came from corners. But with Badashilo's transfer more or less already in place, I want to have a look at an alternative option, and my preferred choice would be Abita Ndicka from Eintracht Frankfurt. He's valued around 32 million euros, and Chelsea's centre-backs have always been notorious with body on the line defending, the likes of Gary Cahill, John Terry, and Ndicka averages about 1.5 blocks and 4.47 clearances per 90, emphasising he is a no-nonsense defender, which is exactly what we need. We can't be taking the risks that we have that lead to sloppy goals, and I think that perfectly suits Chelsea's culture and DNA when it comes to that position. He's 23 with over 119 games in the Bundesliga and plenty more room to grow as a footballer, and if we get Ndicka this January, that provides us with depth for Thiago Silva and also an opportunity for Ndicka to learn from Thiago Silva and only grow and get better as a footballer. The second position that I want to have a look at is right back, and obviously Reece James has just been confirmed out for another month or so, which is not ideal, as Azpilicueta is not good enough to play that position, as he proves every time he plays the game, and I love Azpilicueta with a passion, but it is safe to say that he is past his peak. It's rumoured that the club representatives have already been in contact with Josip Juranovic, which I find interesting due to the lack of reasoning I can see behind contacting him. I mean, if we're focusing on SPL right backs, I feel like James Tavernier would be a much more sensible short-term option. He's got a great creative record with 6 goals and 4 assists from 19 league appearances this season, and his nationality obviously appeases registration rules for Chelsea, which makes it easier to get him confirmed in the team, and in my opinion makes a lot more sense if you're looking at a short-term fix. If you're focusing on more of a long-term development option, I think that the likes of Malo Gusto from Lyon is a much more sensible option, but my choice is Denzel Dumfries, as I think he's almost the like-for-like replacement for Reece James. There's obviously going to be a surge in price after the World Cup following his 1 goal and 2 assists, and generally just look very, very solid and competent throughout the competition. Whether or not he'd be accepting of a second place sort of backup role to Reece James when he's fully fit, I don't know, but I think he's the perfect replacement to rotate and to cover Reece James, whether he's injured or whether he just needs a rest. He's strong in the air, very similar to Reece James, and he's in the top 8% of fullbacks worldwide for aerial duels won. He loves to drive forward, similar to Reece James, and he averages 4.5 touches in the opposition penalty area per 90 minutes, which is incredibly direct. And overloading on that right side has been a strength when we've used Reece James, so I can't see why that wouldn't be the same case if we have Denzel Dumfries. Moving into the next position where I feel like we need strengthening, and that is central midfield, because the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek and N'Golo Kante are not good enough at the moment. Kante's obviously been one of the best players in his position to grace the Premier League, but he's past his prime now. Injuries haven't helped him, and he's struggled to find form since about halfway through last season. With the likes of Mason Mount and Conor Gallagher, who are very progressive aggressive. I think we need somebody who is solid, who can hold their position and resist the temptation to drive forward with the ball. In terms of options, you've got the likes of Alwa, who's in their last year of the contract, but he's too similar, in my opinion, to the likes of Mason Mount and Conor Gallagher. His speciality is driving forward and creating. Jude Bellingham is the ideal figure for this position, but he's out of our price range and looks way more interested in the likes of Madrid and Liverpool. Which brings us on to the first of my two options here, being Adesina Nani. For me, he's the best value for money option, £15 million. He's 6 foot, very comfortable on the ball, and in the top 1% of central midfielders of dribbles completed. And one of the things that stood out for me massively at the World Cup was his ability to press. It's a task that he's more than comfortable with 1.4 presses per 90 minutes, and that puts him in the top 25% of other central midfielders. My main choice, however, is Yuri Tielemans. He's got a 40 million market value, but he's in the last year of his contract. Similar to Skriniar, I feel like there could be some wiggle room with that price negotiation, and even potential for a free transfer at the end of the season, because with Leicester's struggles in the last year or so, there's rumours of a mass exodus at the club with key players threatening to walk out, and we've already to a degree seen that with the likes of Kasper Schmeichel, who left in the summer. He's 25, strong in the tackle, making 2.8 per 90, and with 4.6 progressive passes per game, it shows his intent when he receives or wins the ball to play that ball forward and try and make things happen, which I think we really need. We've struggled going forward, creating chances for so long now, that he could be the jewel in that midfield crown. He fits that deep playmaker role perfectly for me, and in terms of replacing N'Golo Kante, I think he's perfect for it, at least for the next few years in my opinion, and he's already got a wealth of Premier League experience, and he's scored a couple of bangers against us already as well, so it would be quite nice to not be on the receiving end of one of those for a change. On to the next position, and slightly similar to the last one, we're looking at central defensive midfield. Now, my reason for this is very similar to before. We've got a lot of players that like to drive forward, make things happen, but we don't have a lot of players that are able to stay back and bridge that gap between midfield and defence. Jorginho is quite frankly not good enough to hold that position on his own, and bringing in a player of the same position allows us an option of playing two holding midfielders if we would like, or at the very least just rotating Jorginho, because he needs competition. He's not playing well enough at the moment, and we do need a replacement. Now, one of the names at the top of my list is João Paulina from Fulham. He only just joined them in the summer and will cost us around 28 million if we wanted to buy him. He averages 4.72 tackles per 90 minutes, so he is ridiculously solid, and he has been integral for Fulham's performance this season. He's obviously defensively solid, but in my opinion, I think it's probably worth waiting until the end of the season. Overall, just get a better complete look at the player before we move in for him. You've also got the likes of Konrad Laimer, whose contract's also expiring at the end of the season. He also fits that body on the line attitude that I mentioned earlier, with 2 blocks per 90, putting him in the top 1% of midfielders, but he's very limited in his distribution, which I think holds him back and makes him not a real contender for me. My choice, rather unimaginatively, is Enzo Fernandez. He's already set to join Chelsea for less than his 120 million release clause, but whatever that figure will be, it will be extortionate. It's rumoured to be about 110 million with add-ons, and that just shows the World Cup tax really coming into effect. He provides 4.67 shot creating actions per game and 9.39 progressive passes per 90. He's in the top 33% of central midfielders when it comes to tackling, with 2.49 per game. He's obviously just won the World Cup Young Player of the Year and demonstrated his quality on the highest international stage of them all. With a price tag rumoured, he's set to be the most expensive Premier League player in history. I can only hope that he does not prove to be another one of those expensive flops, especially at my club, because I've seen them make too many. But I don't think that he will. I think he'll live up to his expectations and vastly improve this team. The final position that we are going to be looking at strengthening is striker, and this for me is the biggest flaw in our team. In 16 games this season, we've only scored 20 goals, which is just over a goal a game, and for a team that wants to be pushing up for the Champions League and maybe even higher, it's just not good enough. Havertz is not a natural striker, and that becomes more telling with each game that he plays for us, and it's not his fault. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was a terrible bit of business. Even at the time, I knew that it wasn't going to work out for him. He's looked decent in some games, but as an overall transfer deal, you've got to look at this as an embarrassing failure. Following the signing of promising forward David Datro Fofana, Chelsea's long-term option is already in the bag, meaning options like Yusuf Moukoko from Borussia Dortmund are unlikely due to the risk that comes with the age and likely price tag that comes with it. So in my opinion, I think a more experienced and cultured forward is what we need. Ivan Toney is my first option to fill this void. He's excellent from the penalty spot, with 26 scored and only 1 missed in his career, which is crucial for cup games and refining those small margins which can get you the extra 3 points or even extra goals in goal difference. He's 26, so he's on the verge of entering his prime, and with 12 goals and 3 assists this season, he's been involved in 43% of Brentford's goals since since the beginning of last season, which is just ridiculous and shows how important and reliable he can be as a man to lead the striking line. With a market value of 45 million euros, this fee is likely to be higher with Brentford's valuation of the player and how clearly important he is to the club, combined with the fact that Chelsea is a considerable step up in expectation in terms of football clubs that he's played for in his career, sort of limit the possibility of whether or not this transfer would ever take place and whether or not it would be a good idea. In my opinion, he's a solid option, a likeable figure, and maybe a bit of a gamble. No pun intended, sir. My alternative and probably favoured option is Tammy Abraham. He knows the club, and despite a slow start to the season at Roma so far, he's a phenomenal striker who finished his last 2 seasons at Chelsea top goal scorer. I was absolutely gutted when we let him go, and I think that it just underpins our poor business that we've had in the transfer window since the likes of N'Golo Kante, Willian, and Diego Costa joined. It's been largely downhill for us since there, which is why we find ourselves in the position now of needing a rebuild. Focusing back on Tammy Abraham and his ability to get himself in the right positions, he has a non-penalty expected goals of just shy of 1 every other game, which reflects his ability to get himself into the right positions. Now, he's only scored 3 goals so far this season, which is not good reading for us Chelsea fans, but he is still only 25, yet to get into his prime, and he's scored 15 or more domestic goals in 3 out of his last 4 seasons, proving that this season is just a blip. He's come through Chelsea's youth ranks, has a passion for the club and its fans, and fits the DNA of this football club and satisfies the needs vastly in that position, in my opinion. So there's a bit of romantic wishing in that last option there, but these are my choices, guys. Please let me know what you think of my choices. Comment down below which players you think Chelsea need to sign, and as I said at the beginning of the video, if you want me to look at your club and say my suggestions for where I think you need to improve, get them in the comments and I'll have a look at them. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys, and if you have enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe. There'll be a lot more football content coming like this in future weeks, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace and love.